Joining us now is our old friend, Pat Buchanan, who is not old. He's young at heart, as we all are, with the pitchforks. Pat, we're back with the pitchforks. It's like 1992 all over again. How are you?
I'm doing just fine, and it certainly sounds like it.
Yeah.
Boy, that Hillary quote, that's exactly what they ought to zero in on. She dreams of a common market of open borders and open trade and a borderless nation, and they're yelling about Trump's nasty words on a bus.
Well, I think it's what you and I have talked about and written about for many, many, many years now, which is there's a globalist party, and then there's a party that believes in sovereignty in the nation state. And
sure.
we don't need two globalist parties. I mean, we already have one, and that's the Democrat Party. We need a conservative party that is, whatever you want to call it, Republican Party, something else, that represents the average American worker and the American family that's struggling. And Trump represents that, and he's not perfect. He has flaws. We all do. And some of them are they're searing because they're on tape. But that line from Hillary confirmed everything that we believe about the Obamas and the Clintons and, frankly, the Bushes. And Paul Ryan is closer to Hillary, Pat, than he is to Donald Trump on these issues.
You know, you're exactly right. Look, a borderless nation means the end of the United States of America. You've got a hemisphere of, 600 million people or something. They walk back across borders. That's the end of the country. That's the vision of the folks that wanted one Europe. Everybody can walk across the borders. And now Europe is trying to really defend itself against everybody coming across the Mediterranean. But look, and in the Republican Party, there's a pro-amnesty wing, a pro-open borders wing, and a pro-interventionist wing. And these are the ones that Trump is fighting. And I think he's exactly right just to brush them aside and say, look, folks, I am fighting the establishment of both parties that brought us these open borders, mass immigration, unrestricted, that refused to deal with it, that got us into all these wars. You know, we're going to change and have a new Republican Party, but to go after these folks on the issues, and he's still got a long shot.
Well, I think that when you look at this Economist YouGov poll that just came out, the favorability of Trump versus the favorability of Ryan. And I'm just using Ryan as a placeholder for more of a Bushite wing of the party. 54% favorable for Ryan, 74% favorable for Trump. Trump has a 48-plus average positivity rating, and Ryan has a plus 23 net approval rating. So there's no doubt about it. Whether you look at the popular vote in the primaries, Pat, 75% went to Trump or Cruz. Bush, Marco, and Kasich got 24.8%. The mainstream of the Republican Party is a lot closer to Buchanan and Trump than it is to the globalists.
Well, you know, Ryan Republicanism and Bush Republicanism, whatever you say for them, they are dead. They are not the future. I don't know that Donald Trump is going to win this election, but the issues he has raised are going to endure. They're the issues that have the whole Western world convulsed. You know, economic patriotism, secure borders, you know, protecting national sovereignty. I mean, Thomas Jefferson, he wrote a declaration, not a declaration of diversity or a declaration of equality, but a declaration of American independence. The first requirement is that we be an independent, self-governing, sovereign, unique nation, all of us. And that's what Trump is fighting for. And Bush Republicanism is gone. And I just wish some of these folks, I know how anguished they are on the op-ed pages of the Washington Post and how hurt and how they just can't support so-and-so. You know, you just want to say, please get out of the way while the fight is underway.
Pat, when I'm listening to the pundits on television, and they'll immediately discount the WikiLeaks stories, they'll say, oh, no, that's inside baseball. Nobody wants to talk about that. Well, it's because they don't want to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about it because the media will spend all of its energy and all of its time, all of its resources in publicizing and airing the issues and the embarrassment for Donald Trump. They will not delve into why this could undermine democracy to have members of the media colluding with a major political party. They won't even look into that. They'll give it like a little coverage here and there, but it will not be the drumbeat of an 11-year-old series of comments by Donald Trump.
Look, the media have never shown themselves to be more openly in the tank for a candidate and against a candidate than they have this particular year. Let me say this, the debate had a lot of impact, I think. It obviously rattled Hillary. It stopped the hemorrhaging. The Republican stampede halted and the wildebeest turned around. So, but I will say this, that in this whole thing, the establishment is not going to come out of this election unscarred horribly. What Trump did, and what he did, frankly, by bringing out the women and taking her on directly for what she did and her husband did, and you saw him walk out of there the way they did, the establishment has been revealed as really a pack of hypocrites. And as you said, they are 100% behind Hillary, and it is obvious. So their reputations are going to be seared, both the establishment and the media. Frankly, this is an election that is going to be very formative in terms of the future, no matter if Trump loses the election. I don't see how she has any moral authority.
No mandate.
If she wins.
No mandate.
I don't see who respects her.
Where's the mandate for what she wants to do? The Bernie voters don't want it.
Yeah, what does she want? Other than free college.
Free college. She has no plan for the middle class, zero plan for economic growth. Her plan is to spend more money and do some more infrastructure, despite the fact that we have no GDP. We're not growing, yet she wants to spend a lot of money.
But these issues, again, as you mentioned, you take Bernie's people, you take Cruz's people, you take Trump's people. The country is boiling with anger and resentment. It wants change desperately. And if at the end of this they are given the same old people and the same old direction, frankly, in both parties, I think you've got a real problem of disconnect in the nation between the people and the regime.
I think what we're going to see after this election, if Trump doesn't win, the anger isn't going to be trained on Trump. It's just like the anger wasn't trained on Goldwater after '64. The movement grew in influence, and it grew in support. But it's not like the people are going to turn against Trump. The people are going to turn against the Republicans who didn't support Trump.
Exactly. I was back there in '64. I am as old as you think. And what happened? They turned against Scranton and Romney and Rockefeller. They never rose again. Nixon, who had gone out and campaigned harder for Goldwater than Goldwater himself, 2 years later, when I had joined him, we'd led the Republican Party, he did, back to a 47-seat gain in the House, huge recovery. He captured the presidency the next year. Then he got 49 states 4 years later. So look, this is going to be, if Trump loses, there's going to be a forest fire, but it's going to burn up an awful lot of dead wood.
Well, and I think I'm so glad you raised the issue of Nixon campaigning for Goldwater. It demonstrates once again that you don't have to agree on everything to be unified for the moment. You don't. It help Trump get elected, then debate him on all these issues, then try to block him if you want to block him. But get a Republican in the White House so you can put good people on the court and stop the bleed of our independence. That's just the only thing that makes sense. Otherwise, there's nothing left to conserve in 4 years. I don't know what there will be to conserve in 4 or 8 years.
You could have the entire issue of right to life and abortion sent back to the states, and frankly, in the next 4 years, millions of tiny lives saved. If you can get control of the court. If you are a real traditionalist conservative that believes this is important, how can you not be against Hillary, and how can you not be for Trump, who at least is an excellent shot, given the names he's put out, who would put justices on the Supreme Court who look more like Scalia than Ruth Bader Ginsburg? It is to me inexplicable. But let me say this: there's a group of Republicans and others whose their first instinct is to head for the tall grass when the battle really gets hot. They did it to Gold, and of course, when I was with Nixon, they were gone during Watergate. Many of them ran away, headed for the tall grass when Iran-Contra came around. I think you remember that. I can remember some of them, they just went dead silent up there on the Hill because their friends were saying, Reagan should be impeached, this is awful and inexplicable, outrageous, and all the rest of it, and Gipper had made a mistake. But their first instinct is to cut and run. These are the cut-and-run Republicans.
And remember what they did the day that Bill Clinton got impeached? They had a pep rally at the White House with 80 Democrats supporting him. That's what the Democrats do.
I will say this. The old Democrats, I'll give them credit, they'll support their guy right up to the gates of the penitentiary.
Hillary, orange looks so good on you. Hey, Pat.
We're with you, babe.
Pat. Yeah, that pantsuit. The other colors didn't really work in your scheme, but the orange works really well. Hey, I want to play, Pat, because we have a big Christian audience listening, and we have a lot of different faiths listening, but I want to play for you what Trace Gallagher on Fox News said about the WikiLeaks email that indicated of a Clinton ally unbelievable Catholic bashing. Let's listen.
The indication from these Catholic-bashing emails is that both Rupert Murdoch and the managing editor of the Wall Street Journal, Robert Thompson, decided to raise their children Catholic, not because of their religious beliefs, but rather for social and political benefits. Robert Halpin writes, quote, "It's an amazing bastardization of the faith. They must be attracted to the systemic thought and severely backwards gender relations and must be totally unaware of Christian democracy." Top Clinton aide John Podesta, who again is Catholic, did not respond. Jen Palmieri did, writing, quote, "I imagine they think it is the most socially acceptable, politically conservative religion. Their rich friends wouldn't understand if they became evangelicals."
Pat, I think they're talking about us, by the way.
They don't like us.
Yeah, they don't like us. Well, don't you think Trump should really use this example of Catholic bashing?
Let me say this. I do think this. He's made clear, I think he's helped himself when he says, look, the shackles are off. I'm going to fight the establishment of both parties, but I would stop calling out the Republicans by name. Just go forward. Get your agents to call these guys and say, look, whatever you say, just go silent, and then go after these guys on their bigotry. And he's got all these issues, these are the issues that brought him where he was to those numbers you mentioned. And go with those issues, the border security, the nation, and staying out of these crazy wars. And I think he's really got a winning hand. And if he says, look, I'm battling the establishment of both parties, and if I get in there, we're going to work with the Republicans, etc. But I think this is amazing. I have to read what you put up there even more closely.
No. Trump should go to Little Sisters of the Poor, go to Benedict Rochelle's Soup Kitchen in New York. I'd make a real event out of this comment and say, I stand with you. I stand with your religious liberty. I stand with the tenets of your charitable work, your works of corporal mercy. The government should get out of your way and let you operate in the most underserved communities with the indigent people and the poor people. I think Trump needs to be surrounded by those nuns. I'm sorry, I would go right with the Little Sisters of the Poor on this. Pat Buchanan, I'm glad to stand with you at the barricades anytime. I still have my pitchforks for Pat poster in my room, by the way. Pat Buchanan on your healthy radio addiction.